Now, how does a person like Bill Gates get so much airtime during the COVID pandemic when he is not a doctor nor have any background in medicine whatsoever? But somehow he is able to give the most medical advice on mainstream media. And why is that? Because he's a monopolist. Why is that? Because he bought into the pharmaceutical industry. He bought into it as a business opportunity. And he was able to buy his way into the media. And we've uncovered this for a while now with the pandemic and COVID, and discovered who Bill Gates really is. That, even though he wears sweater vests and looks like a cutesy nerd, he's not actually a polite person. He's actually a nefarious freak of a person that he is. He's buds with Jeffrey Epstein. He has sex with underage girls. He's, lied, cheated, stealed, manipulated his way to the top. And he continues to do so on a regular basis. So, we've shown you for this, for example. And this is from the Children's Health Defense. This is from the Children's Network of hospitals and administrators that have said that Bill Gates is buying his way to control the messaging. That is why he's getting so much airtime, because even television anchors know that Bill Gates is not a doctor. He is not a doctor. He is not a pharmacist. He is not a vaccine technician. He has no background in medicine whatsoever. So why is he the one crediting for the most advice? Because he bought his way to control the messaging. He's a monopolist. He wants to buy control of the messaging. So he put his investment into the mainstream media and bought his airtime. And that's what this is an article. So it's from the Children's Health Defense, but that was an article written by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who wrote that book about COVID. And let me tell you, it's definitely a page turner. It's definitely a page turner to reveal and uncover the toxic nightmare of the pharmaceutical industry and the players that are really behind all this, and how they're exploiting a medical situation, exploiting human lives and healthcare in this situation, and how this COVID pandemic was so poorly mistreated and so exploited that it did so much damage, not only for physical reasons, not only did people die and suffer during the mistreatment of helping people with COVID, but also just from a mental standpoint. It has done a damage to society. It has put a scar on society. So, that was the book that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wrote. And he mentioned about how Bill Gates has bought his way into the media. And here's also someone else to point out about this. This is Dr. Robert Malone. Now, we mentioned him a few times. He is the technician. He is the founder of the technology that brought us the vaccines, that brought us to Pfizer and Moderna. He was the one that brought mRNA technology to the medical industry. And what happened to that person? He got silenced out. He got silenced out because instead of placating to big pharmaceuticals so they could profit the most money out of people, he went along with the science. He actually unveiled and told people and done studies and backgrounds and questioned the science and spoke forward about the misuse and mistrust of the pharmaceutical industry. And now here he is on Candace Owens' show, because he's not allowed on mainstream media. The last appearance I've seen him is on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan got canned for it. He was called an anti-vaxxer and a Trumpist, and he's anti-science, and he's taking horse dewormer, and that's where he had to get Sanjay Gupta on to school his ass, because Sanjay Gupta had no idea what the hell he's doing. But apparently he's the smart doctor on CNN. But here's an actual medical doctor who invented the technology and the technology behind vaccines, and he was the most silenced doctor out of all of them. And here's what he's going to say about Bill Gates. Because Bill Gates is not a doctor. He is not a medical technician. So why exactly made him famous, and why is the most adequate person when it comes to medical information? Well, he's going to tell you exactly what a nefarious person Bill Gates really is. Take a listen.
Bill Gates was not a coder, okay? He was not a software engineer. That's not his gift. He is a monopolist. He is.
So what he's saying here is that Bill Gates is not a software engineer. He's talking about the history of Bill Gates. So he's not only questioning his medical advice, but he's questioning the fact that he's supposedly the top dog of the tech industry. But does he actually know how to code? Was he actually the brains behind Microsoft? Or is he just the guy who can shuffle papers around and make millions? Because people have been questioning this for a long time. Is Bill Gates actually a software genius? Or just a guy who knew the right time and the right pace? And Dr. Robert Malone is going to put that into question. He's announcing that Bill Gates is not exactly this credited genius as people would think of him as.
Is an excellent monopolist. He built Microsoft on the bones of IBM and everybody else. He captured that industry. He captured the browser industry, and the government basically shut him down. Remember Explorer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what did he do when he got shut down and embarrassed? And there's those videotapes of his testimony where he's rocking. Okay, you got a background in psychology. What did he do? He tried to rehabilitate himself. How did he do that? He moved into philanthropic work and public health. And what he has done, it's like tiger can't change his stripes, leopard can't change his spots. He has systematically monopolized the global response to infectious disease.
But I thought he was such a caring, loving person. I mean, he did all these charities, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I thought we were doing, general, philosophical work. I mean, I'm just the greatest philanthropist, going to Africa and saving the kids there by inoculating them with these experimental vaccines. And I just care so much about public health. I'm not a doctor myself, but I'm just going to, distribute and tell people to get vaccinated without any actual scientific evidence. And the cat's out of the bag. People are finally realizing that Bill Gates is not a doctor and not a medical advisor. And the reason he's so on board with the pharmaceutical industry is exactly what Robert Malone is saying. He's a monopolist. He took advantage of a service or a good and exploited it for his own riches. That's the same can be applied to Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and any of the other ones. They know how to be good businessmen. They know how to build these monopolized tycoons. Amazon, Walmart, all these goods and services that proud of. Apple. But when it comes to the fundamentals, the only reason they're involved with these products and services is to get hold of them and exploit them for their own riches. When Jeff Bezos bought Whole Foods, do you think people were kissing up to him thinking that, Jeff Bezos is going to care for, grocery stores now? He's going to be in charge of food. I guess he cares so much about the nourishment and nutrition. He wants to get Whole Foods all across America, even to the, ghetto parts of America. He wants to make sure there's fresh food available for everybody. No. You think he cares about that? No. He took a grocery store chain, bought into it, and exploited it for the riches. Same with every single other oligarch. Bill Gates is no different. But he wears those cute sweater vests and he wears glasses, so I guess it's okay now. And I would say, I would say out of all of them, Bill Gates is probably the worst. I mean, Jeff Bezos is definitely up there. I would not trust him at all. Not even to give me directions. But Bill Gates, I would say, probably has succeeded him in being the most awful, monopolistic, piece of shit, garbage human being to ever existed. Because he's continuing to double down on the tyrannical evil of the exploitation of personal human health. He's taking over of human health and jeopardizing all of humanity for this. All of this for his own riches, for his own gains. And people are not being fooled by it. They're not fooled by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Well, they got a nice charity name. So that's something to take note of. And that's from an actual doctor. That is from a doctor who invented the technology to bring us these vaccines, who has now been silenced because of big pharmaceuticals, because of Bill Gates, because of Anthony Fauci exploiting the healthcare industry for a quick buck. And now you're seeing doctors and nurses who have actually done the research and have actually questioned science and have actually done their own experiments and understanding and analyzing the virus within to determine for themselves and to share the research with people. And people can't see it because the same people that are exploiting human health, the same people that are exploiting COVID for their own riches, are also exploiting the narrative. They're exploiting the messaging, which is why Bill Gates buys his way into the media, which is why Facebook is partnering with the CDC to fact check on COVID. It's unbelievable, folks. It's a giant scam. It really is. And I don't know if I can say any of this because YouTube will, So I'm just telling you that I'm just, crazy right now, and everything that I'm saying is just absolutely false. I'll just go with that. But here's also this to point out. So this is part of a documentary that got deleted out. But this is very fascinating and highlights exactly the type of person Bill Gates is.
Bill Gates declared vaccines the best investment I've ever made.
There's been over a 20-to-1 return, over a 20-to-1 return. So if you just look at the economic benefits, that's a pretty strong number compared to anything else.
Gates gave hours of videotaped testimony.
What were the non-Microsoft browsers that you were concerned about in January of 1996?
That month.
Yes, sir.
And what about it?
What non-Microsoft browsers were you concerned about in January of 1996?
I don't know what you mean concerned.
What is it about the word concern that you don't understand?
I'm not sure what you mean by it.
The Justice Department has charged Microsoft with engaging in anti-competitive and exclusionary practices designed to maintain its monopoly in personal computer operating systems.
In a move to overshadow the negative press, Gates invested $100 million to set up the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Overnight, Bill Gates transformed his public image from root.
So just think of that for a second. That Bill Gates, who had a major lawsuit involving internet search engines and internet browsers, that he was on national television, embarrassed on national television for what an evil, nefarious prick that he was. You just saw the testimony there, where he couldn't even define the word concerned. Like, this is someone with no empathy, no respect for anyone outside of his own bubble. This is a narcissistic person in action. And he was the most hated man in the 90s because of it. But now all of a sudden he turned himself around because he took what little investment he had and put it into pharmaceuticals. And now he's the top dog again. Now everybody's enjoying him in the establishment and the mainstream media. Why? Because he bought his way into the club. That's what a narcissistic asshole this person is. That he doesn't care about people. He doesn't care about human health. He cares about his little fragile ego. That he had to get an ego boost by turning human health upside down and jeopardizing people in order to sell vaccines, in order to sell himself as some sort of medical advisor. And there's more to this.
Ruthless tech monopolizer to the world's most generous philanthropist.
I'm pleased to announce that we're pledging an additional $1 billion.
We had the chance to witness Bill Gates 2.0, the man you don't know.
The rebranding campaign paid off. His net worth swiftly doubled, earning Bill Gates the title of richest man in the world.
You've invested $10 billion in vaccinations over the last 2 decades, and you figured out the return on investment for that, and it kind of stunned me. Can you walk us through the math?
In a Wall Street essay, Bill Gates declared vaccines the best investment I've ever made.
There's been over a 20-to-1 return. So if you just look at the economic benefits, that's a pretty strong number compared to anything.
That is dangerous stuff, ladies and gentlemen. And the minute you see him on television saying anything about COVID or anything about any medical advice whatsoever, this is why I cringe. This is why I get concerned. This is why I get into that kind of tinfoil hat conspiracy mode that people think I'm nuts and crazy over. And I've actually had people tell me that I'm such a, idiot and you're overthinking things. And how dare you say something like that? You must be an anti-vaxxer. Like, I've been smeared myself. And I understand that I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. I don't have any medical background whatsoever. But I know the difference from right and wrong. I know the difference between an actual doctor advising and bringing actual medical science to the table and someone who's full of shit. And I'd rather listen to Dr. Robert Malone or any other physician who has actually treated people with COVID, who has actually treated individuals and patients, and knows a little thing or two about the vaccine, little two or know about the virus, little know or two maybe about actually treating people for medical crises like this, and not a tech billionaire who bought himself into that industry. That's what's dangerous about this. That is why the COVID conspiracy nuts that people, screamed and yelled at and said how dangerous they are, turned out they were actually correct. Because they're about 10-0 on the factors of the fact that, it brought us closer to digital IDs. It got us closer to understanding the World Economic Forum, how that they were involved in it. They got us closer to understanding that, of the lab leak theory, that they were trying to hide that. It got us closer to Bill Gates, how that got tied into COVID. And now people are finally understanding the whole background behind this, the criminal cabal that exploited COVID for what it was. And rather than, researching and developing and taking it as a actual medical emergency, they exploited this to the highest point from all these different individuals, from Bill Gates, from Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, to even people like Joe Biden, who still to this day is not going to give you Medicare for all. Still to this day, even though people have died and suffered through this pandemic situation. And that number could have decreased dramatically if they brought Medicare for all or any sort of healthcare system to the United States of America. But when they do, they told you to lock up, close your doors, stay at home, and go pound sand. And if you survive all of it, maybe we'll thank you at the end. This is why. And I knew something was up. The start of this pandemic, you don't know these things. You kind of just go with the flow. You're concerned because it's fairly new to you. But as things went on, and we went through this roller coaster of lockdowns and up lockdowns and, all these different rules and legislation, it was time to turn the page. And when I turned the page, it revealed all this. It revealed that there's more to this story than what you're being told. And the reason you're not being told this information, vital information that any human being should know about, especially in a medical sense, is because they want to control the narrative. They want to propagandize you. They want to fearmonger you, and they want to manipulate your judgment to go along with their flow, go along with their agenda, because their agenda gives them money. Their agenda makes Bill Gates the richest billionaire on the face of the earth. Their agenda allows Big Pharma to make $84 billion in the next quarter. That is what's happening, folks. That is what's happening in the regards of this pandemic. And it is just getting more and more dangerous the more we reveal. And now it's getting even to the point where we're seeing the side effects that people said they were crazy to bring concern about. You know, myocarditis. Oh, you're just a nut. You're just an anti-vaxxer, scary person. You're just kind of fearmonger against vaccines. Well, now we're seeing children, young children, that are now diagnosed with myocarditis, a rare heart disease. So rare it wasn't even calculated. But now it's become so common that they're advertising in New York hospitals. They're advertising New York hospitals for treating children with myocarditis on television stations in New York City. It has become so common now because of that side effect. The side effects that you were not allowed to know until you're about 80 years old. That's the kind of philanthropist a person like Bill Gates is. That's the kind of philanthropy that these billionaires, from Jeff Bezos to Warren Buffett to people at Apple to every single oligarch, people that run Google, people that run Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey who runs Twitter, all these oligarchs, they're not in the interest of people. They're in the interest of themselves. They're in the interest of protecting their ego. And that's why they do this. They're a capitalist. They're a monopolist. They're there to make capital. They're not there to make people happy or sell them good services or sell them good goods. They're there to make themselves richer and exploit people at every point in turn. And that's why Bill Gates is hailed as some sort of hero and champion for medical science, when an actual doctor who invented the technology gets silenced out. An actual cardiologist who is the most credited cardiologist on the face of planet Earth gets silenced out. Nurses across the United States, across the world, have been treating people with COVID, have been on the front lines, have been in the war zone, get silenced out. Because he and other individuals have bought themselves to control the narrative. And that is dangerous for any crisis to have, for anything of humanity. And now you're understanding. Now you're understanding that there's a corporate criminal cabal in the regards of COVID.